Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hafiz Sheikh. On behalf of ITP Publishing Media India, I welcome you all in today's webinar. I'm sure by now everybody knows the do's and don'ts of webinar, especially on Zoom, because its reach itself has reached miles in India. ITP Media Group publishes more than 100 weekly and magazines. It has a wide portfolio of market leading digital properties. We also organize more than 100 plus business and consumer events and conference every year. On behalf of Manufacturing Today, that's the platform that we work and associate. We have Manufacturing Today is India's leading magazine, which focuses on people, process, and technologies for large and mid-sized organizations. Coming to today's event, the manufacturing industry is now being at the forefront in embracing and implementing new technologies. In this disruptive age, the agility of the company to adapt new technology defines its success. In today's session on digital transformation and cybersecurity, we have some of the best industry experts to speak about their experience, a perfect combination and mix of experts belonging to various fields and verticals. With this, I would like to introduce our panels for today. We have Mr. Jayant Kumar. He is the Vice President IT at Havells India. Jayant Kumar holds a PG DN from IIM Bangalore and a BE Mechanical. He is versatile in managing IT functions for manufacturing quality and supply chain management. We also have Biswaroop Haldar. He is Vice President Group IT at RSD Transmission. Biswaroop has more than 3 decades of experience across domains of engineering, oil and petrochemicals, critical healthcare. He's spearheading the group chartered course of Industry 4.0 implementation across 11 plants with PGCA approach. He oversees QMC, IT audit, and related compliances. We welcome Mr. Murli Rao, President and Partners and Cyber Advisory Leader, ENY India. He is also the moderator for today's session. Murli Rao is the cybersecurity consulting leader. Murli has over 24 years of experience with over 20 years in the domain of security and risk management. In his previous life, he has built and managed cybersecurity businesses for EMEA at Wipro, based out in London, UK, and was the global head of cybersecurity consulting for Wipro based in California. We also have Mr. Vilas Pujari. He is the CIO at ACG Worldwide. Vilas Pujari is a seasonal C-level executive IT professional in manufacturing domain. He has a vast experience of 30 plus years in IT and ERP. His career span across Gujarat, Ambuja Cement, Grasim, HTC, and Tata International. We also have an expert from Fortinet, Joe Robertson, EMEA CISO, Senior Evangelist. Joe represents Fortinet to the CISO community, where he advised the executive committee to large enterprise and service provider on the digital transformation strategies that require security-driven network and holistic security approaches. In over 4 decades, Geo has held technical, marketing, management, and executive roles at companies at Drives in as Juniper Networks, Dimension Data, Bay Networks, IBM, and AT&T. We also have Commander Sandeep Kumar, Chief Security Officer of Vedanta Limited. Sandeep has been a pioneer team member of the Information Welfare Cell of the Indian Navy when it started more than 2 decades ago. He helped establish Naval Computer Science Audit Framework and stress CSAT, which is Computer Security Audit Team. He is presently Director and Risk Security and is responsible for risk and security of the aluminium and power plant in Odisha. A tech-savvy science graduate of Delhi University, MBA in HR, he is presently also pursuing PhD in management as a research scholar at Symbiosis International University. We have our last panel member, Mr. Senthil Kumar. He is National Manager, Supply Chain Transformation, Hindustan Coca-Cola, As a supply chain transformation manager, be responsible for deploying Lean and Six Sigma methodologies across all the plants in India, production improvement and identifying and implementing several initiatives to positively impact various costs. He leads the digital transformation in supply chain, covering elements of Industry Revolution 4.0, streamlining transaction process in Hindustan Coca-Cola. I'm sure everybody is waiting for the panel discussion. I hand over this to Mr. Murli Rao.
Very good afternoon, everyone, and I'm honored to be a part of this esteemed panel. In today's day and age, it takes a lot, for one to think about how to adapt to the digital revolution, whether you like it or not. It has been thrust on us, and with the COVID pandemic creating havoc, it's given a new impetus. As everybody in the industry would correlate, everybody says what was due to happen over the next 5 to 10 years has happened in a span of 7 to 8 months. Very interestingly, I was in a conversation with head of engineering of one of the biggest manufacturers of one of the biggest automobile manufacturers. He was telling me that but for the function of simulation and testing and a few production related functions, he's been able to digitize everything and run everything remotely, which speaks volume, because these traditional auto manufacturers, they don't move fast. They're known to be not to deploy, disturbing their existing production ecosystem and production line. So if they have had the impetus to really go out and create such a huge amount of automation, one can only expect the industry to mature more and more as a result of that, and the practices also to mature on an ongoing basis. That's point number one. The second thing is, with the advent of automation, there is this something called the cyberspace. The cyberspace is a very complicated one at this point of time. You have various different actors in the ecosystem, some of them state actors, some of them non-state actors. Then there is a huge cyber economy which thrives on theft and creating attacks. I think many of you would have read about the spate of ransomware attacks, whether it was Mimikatz or whether it was any of the other strands of ransomware that are happening even today. As we speak at this point of time, my team is involved in investigating around 15 cyber attacks, amongst various different customers. So one can gauge the amount and the extent of attacks that are happening in the marketplace. But at the same point of time, whether we like it or not, it's time, as I say, that cyber protecting or defending the cyberspace, defense of the cyberspace is probably the right word to use. Protection is still out there. Maybe we will take some more time for us to actually protect ourselves. So you can defend only what you see, what you feel, what you can sense, and what you can actually visualize. You can't defend blindly. So one of the most important things for us as a CIO or a CISO or anybody who's in this domain of digitization and getting exposed to the outer world, it's very important for us to be able to sort of know what we are trying to defend and what we are trying to protect. So from that particular sense, cybersecurity and the defense of the cyberspace is getting very, very complex. So let me bring in Joe Robertson, who is in the CISO and a senior evangelist from Fortinet. Joe, how would, with the amount of complexities and the amount of issues that are there, whether you look at it from a privacy standpoint, whether you look at it from a B2B and a B2C standpoint, especially if you look at the manufacturing company, one of the biggest problem statements that they have is in the supply chain space. The supply chains are age old, and there are so many equipments and so many sensors and so many issues out there. How do you get started on solutions for these kind of huge manufacturing customers who have supply chain spreading across the geography? And especially from given the kind of obligations that one has today from a cybersecurity response standpoint, and also the regulators who are breathing down your necks, every second day, that the implications that a manufacturing company has to face in case they don't report an incident, on time, right? So, what's your take, Joe?
Well, let's see. Do we have 4 or 5 days to discuss all of those things? Because really, you've gotten to the heart of the big problem in manufacturing and just operational technology. Things have gotten so complicated, and there's so many aspects that you have to watch out for. For me, what I think really matters is, first off, make yourself keep yourself and know your own environment and protect it. And to do that, there's lots of different types of tools, cybersecurity tools to put in place. And then as you are confident in your own environment, simultaneously, you've got to look at who you're giving access to. And the problem there is that you've both got to vet your supply chain as well as keep in mind how you're going to record that, because regulators are going to be asking you about those questions. So the first thing is your own health of your own environment that needs to be clean, and then you need to be able to look out and those supply chain partners need to meet bodies, and there are regulations in various industries that are that will help you with that. ISO 28001, for example, can give you ideas of what you need to be watching for. But when you get down to it, what you need to have is a defense in depth of your environment, and be ready to impose standards on your suppliers and change suppliers if they won't provide you with the level of they're not going to be held responsible. If there's a breach that comes through them, it's your problem.
Thanks. See, the whole issue gets sort of more and more complicated as we move forward, with the digitization and automation automatically means that you're going to embrace more and more form factors, which may be in the form of sensors, which may be in the form of chips, it may be in the form of devices, which needs to be out there in your production floor or your supply chain ecosystem. So which means IoT is going to be a huge thing that you all have adapted or on the verge of adapting. So you see a lot of sensor-related data flowing into your ecosystem. So let me bring in Jayant here. Jayant, with IoT seeing a faster adaptation, probably adapting, you guys adapting at a very fast pace. What are the different kinds of risks that one needs to keep in mind, or what have you taken into consideration? Is the element of risk that has been factored in, or your ability to handle risks, whether it is from the cyberspace or whether it is from a privacy impact scenario or from regulations and the fines that are out there? What are the kind of things that you typically have taken into consideration, Jayant, and how has your journey been? I know it's a long one, but my request is please give us some good insights into that.
Okay, yeah, Murli. So when we look at Havells, so we have an ecosystem which has got a mix of technologies. When we talk from OT perspective, so we would have certain facilities which are really the state of the art. At the same time, we have got some really traditional, let's say, manufacturing facilities, which may be at a very different stage of maturity in terms of when we talk about equipment integration. So yes, to answer your question, we have embarked upon the journey by incorporating IoT as one of the technology to to manage our operations, to bring visibility onto our operations, to better communicate across plants. And in some of the plants where we already have a highly modern infrastructure or highly modern OT setup, that is where we are integrating with, integrating equipment at a very extensive pace, bringing it onto the let us say, the ERP system or to the MES that we are in the process of implementing. So it is all leading at a very high speed to a high degree of exchange of data, right? And this needs to be enabled by technology, as you just mentioned. Cyber threat does come into picture. Yes, we are extremely conscious about that. We have taken certain elementary steps to ensure that the OT data remains, the OT itself, the OT network itself remains segregated. We have got DMZs ensuring that the data, when it moves across the enterprise network or to my OT or to my plant, we are ensuring that there is a complete the checks that we maintain, then we manage through access or data interchange. Those are all ensured. So I would not say that we have matured to the level that we can say that we are 100% there, but there is definitely consciousness about what we need to do to protect the data, considering the journey that we have started, which is going to be extensive use of technology to ensure that we have got the best of breed IT OT for the customers out in the market.
Thanks, Jayant. I mean, you mentioned a very important thing, that your OT landscape is very heterogeneous, and there are legacy systems which are probably legacy, from the previous generation, and you can't do away with it. So, which is a very, very critical aspect of managing both the IT as well as the OT. And since you said that your OT networks are air gapped, and you have created separate DMZs, which is a very good thing. So which brings brings us into the point of talking about how does one look at IT OT convergence, or whether it is about do you actually want to converge, or do you want to really look at managing OT separately or IT separately? So Bishwaroop, if you can step in and take up that question. I'll come back to the same point probably a little later. This is a very important aspect. Yeah, there are different approaches that companies undertake, that enterprises undertake. They have a separate cybersecurity monitoring system for the OT, and they have a separate one for IT. But IT-OT convergence, and especially IT-OT and IoT, or IIoT as the connotation goes, the convergence of that has to emerge. You need to have a single pane of glass for what is happening in your enterprise across all your ecosystems. So how are you taking a stab at that, Bishwa?
Yeah, okay. So I'll cover a bit of basics here, and then we will go into it. See, RSB Transmissions is an automotive, is a component supplier to major Tatas and Ashok Leylands and Caterpillars. So we are predominantly a steel industry. And in the workshop floor, whatever is there is all PLC driven, ID driven, semi-robotic, manual, robotic, etc. It's a mix, as everyone knows about it. It's a mix about everything. So to come back to the basics, you see today, because convergence is important, it is very important. And as everybody knows that OT is about anything physical, all the industrial control systems, etc. So convergence, we have to converge. There is no doubt about it. A classic case is that we are managing all these customer interaction and service classes, and all these cases when we discuss in the IT domain, say for example on a CRM application. So obviously we have to bring back that interaction into the other I deal with customers or with suppliers. All those insights we are bringing back to make improvements in our supply chain operations, which is OT, and product development. So yes, the convergence is happening. As you rightly mentioned, the OT industry, the OT technology is very air-gapped. It is not connected to the outside world. As a preface, if you ask me, are we there 100%? Again, the answer is no, but the journey is already there. So all this OT network, when they are connecting to the internet via, IT network, immediately, as you know, exposes the entire network to the people who are thinking that, who can take control of the systems or data thefts, etc., etc. All these cyber attacks or cyber physical attacks, because this is a mix of both of those. So we have been very careful about it. All the cyber physical control points are at risk. So it is on the interest of all the stakeholders. First of all, what we do is that all my IT staff, they approach the OT staff with a very open mind and become familiar with all the OT technologies, because you see, IT was predominantly managing the data part of it, and OT is is managing all the physical assets of the entire thing. So while IT is managing all those IT specific stuff, so we are trying to make people aware of it. First step is we are trying to make people well trained, telling them what exactly are this. We are all mixing together. All the monitored processes we are evaluating together. All the operations we are evaluating together. All the resilient technologies, which are the cyber resilient technologies, we are all evaluating together. Because traditionally, the OT team was always separate. Operations, it was all operations. So now the first step, the basic step, is that we are talking to each other. We have to talk to each other. These two teams have to talk to each other very well to understand what we can do, because that is a crucial part of it. The most crucial part of it. My software landscape, my OT landscape, my security landscape are all managed by people. So people are very important in this entire stake. So all of them has to be together, and that's one of the primary focus which we are doing right now. So this is the first step one, what we are doing. We are, because all these embedded electronics are connected intelligence, they are migrating very fast. So what we are doing is we are ensuring that we are talking to all the suppliers and getting our firmware upgraded to the extent where I cannot upgrade everything. See, we have a lot of PLC which is based on Windows 7 systems, as you would know, and Microsoft has stopped the support completely. So leaving along a plethora of things open, and the XP, this one. So the moment that system connects to an IT, it's an immediate threat. So we are trying to talk to all the equipment manufacturer owners about their firmware. So that's the place where we are giving a lot of time right now, so that we can upgrade the firmware, pushing them to upgrade the firmware, so that at least we come at a base level where we can put some security into it. So that's the type of work which we are doing right now at every embedded system level, wherever we are. Then there are, as you know, and as everybody knows, there are legacy OT systems. And there are human operators who are maintaining those legacy systems, have become more, and they are becoming more susceptible to the risks over time. More and more systems are getting interconnected around those legacy OT systems. So in certain cases, those systems, the support of those OT systems is gone completely. They're not there, but they have to be there because the systems are working there. So we are trying to find out that how do we help to upgrade that. That is another piece of journey which we were trying to look into it. These are very basics, as I said, but these are very, very important for all of us. And then what we are doing is we are trying to hardening all our IT systems, the OT systems, not the IT systems, OT systems. See, from an IT system, when you hardening, it is very easy because upgrades are there, servers are maintained, data is maintained, but OT hardening those equipments are extremely, extremely tough. So we are trying to do that, maintaining that air gapping. So we are educating people that, you just can't bring an USB and put it here, and then bring it back to the laptop. So we are ensuring people, again, saying that, I cannot leave that air gap. We have to be managing that air gap very, very well, because that's the only conduit through which, I can hamper the entire OT systems. So these are the small steps which we are taking, educating people, embedded systems, monitoring all our assets we have done. Put the entire list of the assets which we're continuously upgrading with the maintenance team. What are my assets? What are the things which are there? So these are the few things which we are doing at this moment.
Oh, those are not small steps. I can for one vouch that these are very significant steps. It looks like getting the basics right is how.
Getting the basics right, yes. And
Yeah,
factor is so very important here, so very important. People can unknowingly bringing USB drives and, punching and taking it back to the laptop and then again bringing it back. And there it is.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting, not interesting. I mean, that's probably the way everybody should be approaching it, to get the basics right, to manage the risks which are already known, and then looking for more and more risks as we move.
Yeah.
So, one of the biggest risks is the intellectual property that you guys have. And Vilas, coming to you, knowing the kind of products that you folks make, it must be really. We would love to understand the kind of complexity that you have when it comes to managing your intellectual property and actually your entire ecosystem, because digitizing that is both a boon and it can also become the bane of your existence, right? So, which again brings into perspective the kind of importance, the exposure of the cyberspace that's going to get into your ecosystem. So, would love to understand your thoughts, Vilas, because it's a very different ballgame for you. I mean, not that I'm undermining anybody else, any other, enterprise out here. Yeah.
It's very complex situation for us as well. We are an engineering company because we manufacture machines and we create our own machines. We design machines. We actually doing a whole of R&D there. We also have this capsule manufacturing, which is more a process kind of industry. So we have different kinds of industry within ACG. And then, ACG worldwide, it's spread across the world. And we have different geographies like Brazil, Croatia, and India, where we operate majorly. And of course, through our various branch offices. Now, having the connectivity to all the locations is mandatory because, they have to be accessing all. And earlier it used to be email, probably some amount of SAP. And now everything is required because people move around, and the kind of protection that we were putting earlier through a simple firewall, we were having kind of, Fortinet firewall, some simple policy, simple rules written, and that was good enough to ensure that, we are safe, to at least, comfort ourselves that we are safe. But, in the last 5 years, a lot of things have changed. The one is that our software dependence to design the machines and design of products, etc., has become very high. In the sense that we have started using more and more software, and we have become more and more global. So, and at the same time, the threat landscape, as you are aware, has been really increasing in the last 5 years. So that's where we have identified the need for a full-time security, information security head. We got him, so we started putting in the systems. So if you look at from the functional aspect, we have a design team, we have an R&D team who does the R&D in labs. So so ensure that we also have, as Vishnu was mentioning, we have SCADA. And you are aware that the production systems, they can't be upgraded so easily. It has to be it will be disruptive. So the tendency is to have the old PLCs and old software. So we have Windows old Windows 8, and also it's very difficult to convince them that you have to upgrade. And they said, okay, we are ready to upgrade the PC, but what about my PLC? What about my production system? So one is going to be costly. It is not required for them because they are okay with that. But the vulnerabilities within the older operating system was high, and even though we want to invest in protection systems, we could not do, because those don't support because of this vulnerability that exists within the system. So we had to do a lot, and we engaged very closely with the users. We implemented latest and high-tech security systems. We have implemented SOC. There's a 24/7 continuous monitoring that's happening. We have implemented latest firewall systems, and so we have taken all the care, and also more importantly, the awareness about security with the people. Because there's the biggest risk that are there. Even though we do whatever we do, so we have done the training right from our managing director till the general manager level. We have done, and our plan is to cover each and every person in the organization in this security training, because anybody can be source of vulnerability. And with this work from home situation, the challenges have become much more, because even those people who used to do they design the software, design the machines in the office, and they were sitting in the laboratory and doing research. Now they are actually doing some amount of that work at home. So they are operating from home as well as from office. So that brings additional challenge. So we have, of course, we have a lot of governance within ACG, and we have put through our information security head. We have undertaken several projects in the last, 1 year period. We have implemented DLP, the data leakage protection system. We have stopped USB access to all, no USB access whatsoever it is. So there are different mechanisms, like securely sharing the file if at all it's required. So the technology plus the plus the governance plus the awareness within the organization are three different triangles, different corners of the whole security triangle that we are looking to. And with this kind of environment where our 60% or maybe 70% of our office team is working from home, and we feel still a lot safe because of the things that we have done in the past few months and few years.
Oh, thanks a ton. Thank you, Vilas. It's always a very interesting analogy coming from your industry and your background. Let me turn to a slightly different topic. I mean, inside the domain of cybersecurity and digitalization. Given the fact that all of us have been dealing with both the traditional OT and the traditional IT, and now there is the explosion of exposure of data on the cloud, both from an OT perspective as well as from an IT standpoint. Commander Sandeep, one of the issues that I would want you to comment about is, what does it take for you to change the culture, in the enterprise, especially on the folks from the manufacturing side? Because they're not used to this terminology, they're not used to this kind of thinking, neither are they, educated. When I say educated, not in the wrong sense, but they just don't have a linear, natural exposure to what's happening on the IT world. For them, IT is still a little far away thought, right? So how does culture, is culture a major battle for you in your enterprises?
Hi, thanks. I think, yes, to a very short answer to that, it is, and I'm sure it will be in many of the sectors. Okay, so ours is not unique, though metal and mining, as you would imagine, is a totally different ball game, and it's huge infrastructure, it's huge manufacturing. And I'm glad, the earlier panelists also resonated the thoughts which I had in mind, that while we are having disparate legacy systems, and you can't do away with them, huge infrastructure, huge cost. So you have to carry it forward. And fortunately, so far, they're working hunky-dory. So there's no reason in a cost-prudent sense to change anything. But for this new threat, not new, but I mean, much prevalent, which is now getting more and more severe. So I feel it's just a matter of time that which enterprise or which company or which unit will be attacked. It's a guarantee that they will be. It's a matter of the adversary's interest in you. I find in today's scenario, I find a great lesson with COVID-19 and cybersecurity. So if we were to take this as an example and say, no one is safe and everyone has to have that kind of protection, including endpoint, which is PPE and all that. Yes, you need to have that. But from an enterprise standpoint, we need to be joined together. We need to shake hands with each other because we are in it together. Like it was a lockdown or social distancing. I mean, you are protecting yourself. At the same time, you're also protecting the others by masks and social distancing. Similarly, if I were to be attacked, let's say, for that matter, or my company, then I don't need to hide it under wraps till it becomes, we must share it. Of course, you keep your IP and all that, but be forthcoming in sharing. Be forthcoming in at least diverging the vulnerabilities that were existing. After the attack, I'm sure it will be plugged and will no longer be there. But that is a bigger challenge. And as far as education, and you rightly mentioned in the right sense, I think there is a sense of disbelief even now, unfortunately. And everyone is hoping against hopes that we are not going to be the one. And I mean, if you go back from a risk management perspective purely, till the incident occurs, there will be that amount of disbelief till you are attacked. Once you're attacked, everything will get sorted out. But that's a huge cost we are going to pay to retrospectively think that we'll put everything in order. Can you do it beforehand is the question. I don't think people are ready, or I don't think people really believe that much of investment is required at this stage. So in a way, what I'm saying is there is amount of disbelief, etc., or maybe the risk managers need to be more convincing in sharing based on data. And today, you rightly opened the remarks saying state and non-state actors, right? So that is a very, very loaded statement, and our systems are predominantly Chinese. Now we have OT systems, and with the convergence, which again I think Biswarup also mentioned, it's inevitable. You want synergy, you want efficiency, so there will be convergence. And but for the air gaps, which again was an ideal solution, but we are not in an ideal world. We want everything to go. So there's a huge challenge. I really get overwhelmed with this thought. And are we protected enough? I don't think so. And the lessons learned from the defense, if you say offense is the best form of defense. But in this case, if I was in the Navy, I would be on the offensive front foot playing, because you are deemed to do that. But we are in a manufacturing profit-oriented business growth perspective. So you don't really look at what we can do in offenses, do pen testing, safeguard our system. Penetration testing is one of, I think it is better than auditing, which really pinpoints to you where the gaps are. So towards that, and I resonate also well with the earlier panelists who mentioned about education and awareness. I'm glad you said, right up to the chairman downwards to the general manager. That's wonderful. If you're able to do that, and really it sinks home, because everyone is equally vulnerable and they could be the cause of that breakthrough, which malicious people are really looking at. So yes, I mean, there is a challenge, and we need to work on all fronts, to really solve this.
You mentioned a beautiful word. Offense is the best form of defense. In the domain of cybersecurity, as I think all of us are aware of, offensive security is very expensive. It's is carried out only probably by the governments and people with really deep pockets, probably the Goldman Sachs of the world or Citibank. I don't think so. All we can do is cyber hygiene, enforce cyber hygiene, ensure that we manage the risks appropriately, and ensure that the defense is not taken for granted, and do what Commander said, the offensive defense. Conduct pen testing, red teaming, so that we can keep challenging our own fortresses, on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. One more thing which comes to mind. You see, when we talk about a threat actor or threat per se, you look at capability, motivation, and intent, right? Capability exists. It's with everyone. I mean, let's assume it is there. Now it's a matter of motivation. Can you also mitigate your risk by reducing a particular threat actor to be motivated towards yourself? That is also something which has to be done very carefully. So there are nuances to that, and how can you do that? Because once the person is motivated, intent manifests itself, and it will happen because the capability exists. So it's a matter of time, and you cannot say that I am fortified enough that no one can attack me today. That's a really asking for too much. Really, you're advertising the wrong thing. So that's not going to
almost
happen.
impossible. That's almost impossible.
Absolutely. So that being the reality, so there are ways of responding to risks, and make sure you do that. It's a huge challenge. It's an interesting one, though.
One of the things, piggybacking what Sandeep said, is also, and this is for everyone, I think everyone is doing it. See, we have this culture of BYOD, bring your own devices. That's another very, very serious threat to the entire network. We have to be really careful of what we do, and then that's why a very good IAM is required, because more and more companies are promoting bring your own devices for managing a lot of things, and applications small or big also gets embedded into those bring your own devices just for manageability, because it is important that people are always mobile and able to do a task. So that's another threat which we were seeing is really getting bigger and bigger and bigger and complex. And along with that, I would really, to the entire team here who's listening, is the identification management is a very important piece. Again, it's basics. The IAM protocol, which you set in an organization, is extremely, extremely important, because you see what happens is access management. Let me be very particular. Depending on the hierarchy of where you are in this organization, a lot of times we close our eyes to the identity management or the access which we have given because of ease of operations, because of time nahi hai types, and because of having a closed eye to that. That is itself is an extremely important, I can say, a culture which needs to be embedded into the whole system, saying that access is important, when it is required, by whom it is required, and why it is required. This has to be taken very, very, very seriously. I think that's another thing which is predominant and leaves a huge gap if it's not managed well, because in an organization, you just know because it's growing. And so IAM is an important piece, and BYOD is another important piece through which all these leakages are happening today.
If I could jump in, I think you're absolutely right about that. That this gets us into the zero trust type environment. And you've got two edges when you talk about the BYOD environment. You got, is the device something that's authorized, but you also then want to look at the identity of the individual. Is that person who I want behind the device? And you need to check both of those to be really secure.
You said it, Bishru, Joe, and Commander.
Because if you take a poll today, sorry, Murli, I'm just emphasizing another thing. It's an important piece. If you take a poll today in all our 42, 45 people who are there, if anybody can tell me how many people have put in an antivirus system into their BYOD, I would be really, really, so out of, I think around 90% of the people today in their BYOD, the security, the antivirus system or the security system is not there.
Getting deeper into that, Bishru, will get us into another different conversation altogether of another kind. Privacy and whatnot, the implications around that. Now, let me bring in Senthil. Senthil, given that you guys at Coca-Cola, your supply chain is legendary. You guys are all over the place. You serve almost every corner of the world. And you guys manage probably the biggest, but probably there is your favorite competitor who can compete with you on the supply chain front as well. But with all the bottling plants and with all the supply chain, that is out there, how much of, the ecosystem is prone to exposure to the cyberspace because of human errors? Do you find issues on the supply chain side from the perspective of, people inadvertently ending up doing mistakes or intentionally also doing, with some malicious intent? Have you found those kind of cases, or have you put up any kind of controls, for you to be able to sort of get an insight into what's happening out there?
Yeah, thanks, Molly, for that. And so first thing is touchwood, we haven't faced any threat or intrusion as of now. But nevertheless, all the basics controls are put in place both on the IT and the upcoming OT piece. So we are not there at the OT integration yet to an best-in-class standard. But we have started our journey a couple of years back, and we have an pilot plant running where it is completely connected right from my incoming transformer to the last bottle that's moving out of the facility. We have every information on the cloud today, and was a model plant. We are trying to explore what's in it for an organization for us. So we are trying to bring in that. But talking on the controls that we have put in, yes, we deliberately looked at key process steps on coming with a good cyber safe environment. Though we can't assure that we are 100% safe, but we are taking all the baby steps to reach there. And I think most of our fellow panelists have already touched upon. So the key steps that we follow internally was like categorizing our information. So like self-awareness. So what makes my attacker what is more interesting about in me, which makes the attacker look at me. So sensitivized information. So ensuring that we have proper control for it was the first phase, where we can at a quicker turnaround time we'll be able to protect the most vulnerable part of our business. And the second part, which was also mentioned, is on the vulnerability assessment or penetration test that we keep doing. And we keep repeating it at least twice in a year to ensure that we don't introduce new threats into it. So with the advent of IoT, every day, or I wouldn't say every day, at least every month, we are bringing in some new solution in place, changing something in our existing platform. It could be as simple as a Wi-Fi router change. So that could bring in a threat. So we are ensuring that we keep doing this penetration and vulnerability at a set frequency. And building a control environment, not just when I say control environment, it is focusing both on detection as well as control. So once detection is always going to be an upcoming thing which we are currently working on, and there is all the people who are on the other side also are trying to evolve to mitigate all sort of detection that we are bringing in. And the second part is most important, is also on the corrective environment. When something goes wrong, how I can reduce the impact that happens to the organization. So having some BCM in place and ensuring that those things are validated at a periodic interval. So we are ensuring that we are also having a control environment in place if something goes wrong. And when we do this, it is not just restricted to the physical boundary of our plants, because with cloud computing become the new norm, and I think every organization will have more than one cloud partner with whom we are interacting, and all our data are stored in multiple places. So we need to expand our horizon just beyond our physical boundary to the cloud boundary as well. And when I talk about cloud, obviously the fourth point would be on the vendor assessment. So every vendor or partner with whom I'm partnering, so it's even more important to ensure that how secure or how cyber safe they are, and do all the sanity checks, and including penetration check as a mandatory that we have. So it looks initially a bit tough, and both my partner as well as my end users who are trying to bring in the solution, they feel it is like a tough challenge to get into an IT space of our organization. But we feel that it is mandatory, or it is needed, considering the challenge that's out there, and to make ourselves a safe environment, create a safe environment. So we do an extensive checks on our partners' systems as well, including a mandatory penetration test assessment also. And the last but not the least part, which is building the awareness, which we already talked about. So every employee plays a major role in this, and every associate should be completely aware of what they are holding, and how a simple task of them can completely jeopardize the entire controls that you're putting in. So that awareness, I think, is key, and we keep emphasizing them as part of mandatory trainings, as well as periodic phishing and other emails, which is intentionally done to check if there is any gap or lacuna, and train the individuals, and keep emphasizing back on that. So these are the basic steps I think every organization might be doing it in a different form or order, but nevertheless, I think more or less we should be touching the same. So this is the structure in which currently we are doing the same.
No, thanks a ton, Senthil. That looks like a good amount of hygiene already being built in. Obviously, you and me will always find more and more things to do, because the space is probably one of those few spaces where even at our age we get to learn on a day-to-day basis. One can never stagnate in the domain of cyber. Yeah. So let's do one thing. In the interest of time, I want to pull out a question from the audience. There is Mr. Rakesh Patak asking, can some quantitative evidence be stated that the Indian manufacturing is really having a threat of cybersecurity? Okay. So I'll take a first stab at it. We just have another 4 minutes. So, I want all of us to be conscious of that. So, Rajesh, there is enough and more evidence around that. I'll take my own personal example. In the last 3 months, I cannot name the customers, obviously. One major, pharma manufacturer in India, one of the biggest pharma manufacturers in India, got hit with a ransomware. The entire 3 production plants were down for close to 35 days. Because the data was taken away and they wouldn't release the data without paying the ransom. They did pay the ransom. The ransom paid was close to around $5 million, $5 million US, and it was paid through Bitcoins. Yeah, that's one classic example. One of the biggest names in the industry, this never got released in the press, in the power sector, they got hit very badly, and their transmission lines were down for almost 10 to 12 days. So you can think of the impact of that. The third is, there is another big name in the industry. They got hit with another ransomware, again, hardly a month and a half back, if I'm not wrong. And for them to, number one, take the ransomware out and negotiate with the, the attackers and really get their systems back, for them to rebuild their systems, because they had around 90 to 100 servers which are in which were a physical form factor. Now, if it is a virtual form factor, it's very easy for you to rebuild your systems. The physical form factors, you got to rebuild it from scratch. They lost 75 days of time because some of these were legacy systems. So yes, we can quantify. In fact, EY is coming out with a report especially focused around that, because what we are doing is, at this point of time, I stated this in the beginning of this conversation, my team is involved in investigating 15 cyber attacks at this point of time. So you can imagine, and all these 15 cyber attacks are with big names. Okay. Confidentiality, obviously, I will not reveal the names, but there is enough and more empirical as well as realistic evidence available, Rajesh. Any one of you in the panel, if you would want to add, please feel free. Vishwaroop, Joe, Sandeep, Vilas.
I think, we have seen, in fact, there is a lot of data that is getting published in the newspaper and on the TV channels that, there are many organizations which are getting impacted. And it's openly stated, and in WhatsApp groups, a lot of news moves around. And based on what we see and hear is that, the manufacturing industry is not isolated. Okay. Yeah. So when attacker is attacking, he doesn't distinguish. But of course, the financials and all, they are more targeted attacks, and the other general industries could be, could be hit by chance, or even by as a target attack. So they do happen. So we cannot say that manufacturing industry is isolated.
If I look at it from an offensive or adversary standpoint, as a hacker, and I'm speaking a bit of experience, so it is a bit dated, but when we are looking to attack, of course, you have your targets set, right? But many a times you are unable to penetrate. And then while you are exploring, you find certain gaps and vulnerabilities, and you say, hi, I got something. You have no idea where it is, what it is, but you get in. And so be it. I mean, you found the vulnerability, and then you're exploring, not with a malicious intent at that time, but you chance upon a gold mine. That also happens. So people, to say, that's what I'm just amplifying my earlier comment that no one is safe. Even if you say that, I'm not an attractive enough target, but guess what? You could be a chance target.
Yep.
Then what?
Actually, Sandeep, you have spoken the right thing. Only two types of companies exist: those who know they have been compromised and those
Absolutely.
who don't.
Yeah.
You're right. Essentially what you're saying is invariably you're blissfully blind.
See, at some point in time, Murali, everyone will get attacked.
Yeah. So
What you don't know will hurt you.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah. So just to sum up, I think we are already the time allocated to us. We haven't even scratched the surface. I think all of us know that these are very interesting times. This is a very, very passionate subject. We are all in. We have 1,000 things to articulate, 1,000 things to question ourselves from. We still haven't touched the impact of 5G on manufacturing. That's another beast which is waiting to in the world.
Yep.
We've spoken about cyber safety certifications. We haven't spoken about the impact of testing or not testing controls in your enterprise. It is not a tabletop testing. It's time that we start to physically test controls in a controlled environment. So we haven't spoken about the impact of an attack on the brand, whether it is Vedanta or whether it is ACG or whether it is any Coca-Cola or anything. So millions of things to talk about, very interesting times. My sincere thanks to all the panelists. It was an absolute pleasure talking to all of you. And, any one of you in the audience, please feel free to contact any one of us. If you have any questions, we would be happy to answer that offline. But in the interest of time, I need to hand this back to Hafiz. Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you very much. That was in fact, great conversation that we had, and I'm sure along with me, the audience also wanted to keep on listening. This session was filled with insight, real experience, real life scenarios, and much more. We appreciate all our speakers, their commitment and dedication in sharing insights in the interest of the industry, especially in this topic, which is critical for people who are remotely working who are remotely connected and working in this current scenario. We hope it was a learning experience for each stakeholders of the summit. Once again, thank you very much and keep reinventing. We will come back to you with a new webinar. Till then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.